Welcome back to the Jumpify Labs podcast, the show for founders who want growth without the guesswork. Here we're mixing real talk around systems that drive predictable growth, and today's episode flips the script on fundraising. Most nonprofits focus on asking for cash, but Krit helps them ask for assets. He's a fundraising and planned giving coach, teaching organizations to build wealth, and we're breaking down how nonprofits and entrepreneurs can grow smarter, not just harder. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jay. I appreciate it and excited.
Pleasure's all mine, brother. Let's kick things off. Ron, you've had an interesting past from corporate consulting to being a leader in the nonprofit space. What led you to make that shift?
You know, it's funny. I know some people say there are no accidents, but I fell into philanthropy. Graduated from college and thought, oh, I'm going to be a consultant, make all this money. And then the tech boom burst and I started to get some nonprofit experience. And the people are amazing in nonprofits. I then went and did banking and I was doing training and development, which I love. And I do it all the time now in my role. I was personal training as well on the side. And I went to the JUF in Chicago to do a program on health and wellness. And while I was there, a friend of mine, the same friend who introduced me to my wife, said, "Hey, you should meet this guy, Bob. He needs a marketing endowment guy." And I'm like, I didn't do that in banking. I can't help you. And 15 years I was there and I loved it. I learned all these great ways to raise money that's not cash, that's, bigger gifts than you would get. If you think about it, a lot of people have a ton of money in their stock market portfolio, but their checking account, not as much. So you could get a really big gift if you ask for a gift of stock instead. So learning all those things, we helped 39 plus organizations raise $62 million in endowment commitments. And that made me think, I think I could do this on my own. Like, that was a huge win. I spent a year at a foundation. And let me tell you, giving away the money is super fun. But I really wanted to focus on my own business. And that's what, inspired me to start my own company.
So you've raised 62 million in commitments. Now, we had this discussion a little while ago where
Helped others. They did most of the heavy lifting, for the record.
right. And that's totally fine, but you have this unique way of actually doing it where people are just asking for money, but you're asking for something different. Why don't you shed light a little bit on your process?
Well, what I've learned is a lot of nonprofit, especially smaller ones, they're stuck in this cycle where they're always either hitting up the same people for donations or they're just trading like dollars for hours. They go and they ask people for money and they're not asking for the right types of gifts. So what I try to do is teach them how to ask for vehicles like a donor advised fund, which is a charitable giving account. And what's awesome about it is you can go to Vanguard, Schwab, Fidelity, community foundations, religious organizations, and you can set up this fund. You put in some dollars, whatever that, they all have different minimums. You put in the money, depending on your situation, generally you get a tax deduction right away. That money, it's no longer yours. However, you decide where it should go. And what's crazy is the donor advised fund world has been exploding. There's over $250 billion in donor advised fund assets. That was in 2024. It's probably higher. Aside from the tax benefits, you're also investing those funds. So your 10 grand that you put in there could be 11 grand or 12 grand. And that's $2,000 you did not put in there. Then they call it grant recommendations. You then recommend where you want the money to go. And it has to be a 501c3 charity. You can't get anything in return. So you can use it as a sponsorship for an event, but you can't like buy tickets where you're going to get food or entertainment. So there are some rules, but it's pretty awesome. And this is a lot. A lot of wealthy people have foundations. And with a foundation, by law, you have to give away 5% a year. So that's great for nonprofits. If the Coleman Foundation is giving away 5% every year and they have $30 million under assets, that could be huge. But the Coleman Foundation, they have all this paperwork. They have to have a board. If they just opened a donor advised fund, a lot less red tape. But you have to ask people for it.
We also talked about endowments. Is this similar to the endowments?
Yes, I helped one organization. I was talking to them about starting an endowment, and the head of the family ran it, and he was not an endowment guy. He said, I want all the money to get used today. And that's fine. A lot of people feel that way. But the beauty of an endowment is it's a nonprofit savings account. So your annual campaign, the money you're raising every day is operations, your expenses, your endowment is invested. And that money grows, hopefully, usually. That money grows, and you're only using a portion of it every year to offset operations. The bigger your endowment is, the less money you have to raise every year. You can also borrow against it. So COVID, awful. So many reasons it was awful. But for nonprofits that had a big endowment, they could either invade it and take some money out of it or borrow against it, which is what a lot of organizations did. That way, if they got, a good loan, the interest is probably less than what they're making in their endowment, and they could pay it off over time. So it's really flexible depending on how you set it up.
And what are the biggest misconceptions that nonprofits have about planned giving and about endowments?
I think a lot of times they think, oh, it's so complicated. I need to be an expert. I need to be a tax expert, or I need to be a lawyer. You really don't. Like your donor should go to their tax expert and say, oh, don't do that. Or, oh, yeah, of course. It really holds them back. A lot of times I'm helping organizations raise endowment dollars, and they're worried that they don't know, how a donor advised fund works. And I said, you don't have to know all the details. A, I'll teach you. B, you're just asking for this type of gift. You don't have to be, the professional. Like, that's what their accountant is for. That's what their estate planning attorney is for. And they get so focused on the minutia that they don't go out and ask people for money.
And how do you help leaders make that shift from short-term fundraising to having that multi-decade vision?
Well, one, it really depends on the organization. This might sound bad, but some organizations don't need an endowment or shouldn't have one. They're barely surviving. They haven't been around for a while. So thinking about an endowment when you've only been around for 4 years, great. Not many people are going to contribute. If you've been around for a decade or longer, you've proven that you're going to make it. You have consistently raised funds. Your mission is something people get behind. And that's when I start suggesting building that endowment. And it can be in small steps. This is going to make me sound like a used car salesman, but you can give an outright gift. Like, Jay, you have a good year, you're charitable, you like this one in charity. You could say, hey, here's $50,000. It's not an annual gift. This is for an endowment. And that's great. People love endowment gifts that are outright because they get the money right away. But a lot of people make these gifts in their estate plan or will. So you're not seeing it or feeling it ever because they get the money when you die, which I know death is looked at as a taboo subject. But if you phrase it like, hey, this is how you're going to be remembered, you care about this during your lifetime, let's ensure it keeps happening even when you're no longer around. But also, it can be just like a percentage. When I'm working with an organization that's trying to build an endowment, I always say, hey, ask for a percentage of someone's estate. If you look at someone who maybe on paper isn't wealthy, they still might have a car, a home. Maybe they have a boat. I don't know. I'm just making things up here. Maybe they have a condo or some other assets, or a lot of art. When they pass on, it could be a lot of money, 5%, 1%. It can really add up. You look at the average cost of a home or the average stock portfolio of an individual, 1% could be a lot of money. So I try to push for the percentage because that could be a lot bigger than if someone just says, I'll give you 10,000.
Definitely depends on the size, of course. If you can get a percentage of a whole estate, yeah, that definitely can add up. So, Ron, what's next for your consulting business? 2026 is right around the corner. What are you working through now?
So next, I really want to help organizations on a more regular basis. What I've learned is I can create this plan. Anyone, you could go into ChatGPT and get your own plan, or I can do it for you, or you should maybe do both. But when you get the plan, the hardest thing is implementing it. So I want to spend time this year helping the organizations I work with to implement the plan. I want to talk to them about prospecting. I want to follow up with them a couple weeks later. Did you talk to these people? How did it go? What are the next steps? I've learned that there's so many things they're juggling that fundraising, endowments, it can kind of get lost behind until like right now, or it's the end of the year and they're shuffling for Giving Tuesday or whatever. But if we can meet on a regular basis throughout the year, I can hold them accountable and help them. And I do a lot of writing, like I've always done a lot of writing. You can check out my 3 books on Amazon. They're all fiction, but don't judge me. They were written many years ago. But anyway, I can help you also with some communications. If you're, I don't have time for this. Hey, this is like no problem. Scripts, details. It's way easier for me to do it and I can churn it out a lot faster than they can. Here's your draft. Make any changes you want and just send it out. They're like so nervous sometimes to get started. And I just want to see them see the fruits of their labor.
I mean, we're seeing this with the whole AI implementation that we do. Let's not overthink the communication. The AI kind of does it all and manages it all, does the back and forth, it does it all. So something like that might even be helpful. But
Love it.
tactically wise, for the nonprofits, what systems do you install for them to keep their donors engaged year round?
I'm glad you asked that. Stewardship is so important. And if you stop stewarding your donors, chances are they stop giving. I talk about having a full stewardship plan. So looking at the year and dividing it up either whether it's monthly or quarterly. And obviously, if someone's just giving you a few dollars, maybe you just need to give them an update. But if they're giving a bigger amount and they're really invested or they're volunteering, regularly updating them, what programs you're running, thanking them more than just once a year, making sure to put their names on things as long as they're comfortable with it, whether it's online or in a print snail mail, but also on social media. I really encourage them to get quotes, get testimonials. It's good for both sides. Let's say you make a big donation to the American Cancer Society and they put like a quote. Jay said X, Y, and Z. One, it makes you feel good. And two, it makes them more approachable. Like, oh, it's a real person. This isn't like Bill Gates or, can I quickly talk about AI? Because you
Yeah,
mentioned it.
please.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do encourage my clients to use AI, and for exactly what you said, I want them to clean up communications. I want them to create their own communications. And, you're more of an expert in AI than I am, but I use it all the time and it can personalize things. If you put in the right prompts, feed it some of your data. So I do a lot of encouraging them to, if they want to personalize a stewardship letter, hey, take everything you have in your CRM about Jay and plug it into AI and say, I want to send a nice heartfelt note. This is what Jay's interested in. It'll do it for you. I mean, you have to clean it up, of course, but it really helps in so many ways.
Yeah, 100 out of 100 times. It's better to have the conversations than to overthink and never press the send button. So, Ron, for the nonprofits who want to learn more, where should they start with as far as contacting you? Where should they go?
Oh, thanks. You can go to my website. It's Ron Krit. I should just make sure I'm sending you the right web. I recently have been looking into updating my website, but it's ronkritconsulting.com. And I have a blog. I highlight different philanthropic people, different organizations. I give tips. So I would go there. You can also just send me a note at ronkritconsulting.com. I'm on LinkedIn. It's just Ron Krit, Krit. And I post nonprofit tips and business development tips all the time. I'm a big fan of professional development, giving feedback, receiving feedback, managing up. I teach classes on that, and I often post different tips and tricks to help your culture as well.
Outstanding. Thanks so much for sharing your contact information, Ron. If you are a nonprofit, if you're in that space, if you're looking to raise funds, if you want to explore the whole endowment and Ron's systems that he helps nonprofits with, be sure to reach out to him. He shared his contact details. And if you want more stories like this from other leaders like Ron in different spaces, be sure to tune in for more. My name is Jay. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jay.